Tell us about what we need. What happened there? I mean, did we drop the ball in this country on why?
Because you've always liked crypto. Look, I think the underlying technology is fascinating and very powerful. I think of these protocols as operating systems on which people are developing all kinds of fascinating programs that are going to allow us to do things that we've never been able to do before. So what I want is a sensible regulatory environment so that there's certainty that you're not breaking the law. You know whether or not your project involves a security, so you know whether or not you got a problem with the SEC. I've got a stablecoin bill that's a kind of simple, discrete part of this ecosystem where we could provide certainty and really help. But the failure of Congress to do that and of the regulators to provide clarity is part of what's driven activity offshore to places like the Bahamas, where you don't have the consumer protections that we would take for granted here. And here's the other thing that's really important, which is why I'd like to do a hearing and bring SBF in before the Senate Banking Committee. I have colleagues who are choosing to use this explosion as their opportunity to blame crypto and paint this whole ecosystem with one broad brush. This is about the outrageous behavior of an individual and maybe a few individuals, but it has nothing to do with the underlying asset, right? We've seen this play out how many times with fiat assets?
Well, let me ask you a question, though. So it depends what we think happened inside of FTX. Part of it may very well have been this commingling of the assets.
It certainly looks that way.
Looks that way, which unto itself would be a problem, and a problem whether it was crypto or anything else.
Right.
There's a secondary issue, which is the way in which some of these currencies have been used as collateral, whether they're really currencies at all, the way the float worked, how they work. And so, no, but I do think there's some underlying questions about what these things even were.
Or how they're used, right? I mean, the FTX coin, FTT. Very dubious value, right? What's supporting that? What's the underlying reason why there's value in that token? I would be very skeptical about it, right? I'm actually skeptical about lots of
And so then what would you do? So, but here's the question. If the U.S. looks at it, looks at the FTT token and says, we can't deal with this, then it's going to live in the Bahamas, right?
No, I don't think so. I think, so first of all, our regulatory regime should be about disclosure, making sure that investors understand the risk they're taking, and then you let them do what they're going to do. It should not be to protect people from themselves. So if we had that kind of clarity, there would be lots of options in this space where people could participate with sensible, regulated companies, and I don't think these offshore projects would be as successful.
The issue with what happened at that exchange, you think there were crimes committed here?
So I'm not a lawyer. I think so, but it was offshore, and so the extent of the jurisdiction of the SEC is a question in my mind. Likewise with the Justice Department, but it certainly looks to me like had this been done in the U.S., there'd be all kinds of crimes.
If we were to regulate it in the United States, who should do it? Is it the SEC?
So that's a real challenging question. So in my view on stable coins, I don't think that is the realm of the SEC. I think the OCC is a more appropriate regulator, and my legislation contemplates that. I think some tokens look and are used like securities, and they probably ought to be regulated by the SEC. Truly decentralized platforms where there is no central authority, there is no intermediary, there is nobody in charge because it's software that was released onto the web, that doesn't look like a security to me.